boulders out in your neighborhood.
Yeah. Have you seen them?
I've heard about them.
Does it
Wow.
require a meeting or just signatures?
In my yard, by the way.
Boulders. That's what I was told.
Yeah. Big boulders.
Oh, boulders. Oh.
Putting boulders around this property, yeah.
What was the problem?
Well, they keep hitting those, they'll
You
back
see the
right
show
in
this
and
morning,
hit
Jim?
those,
You see
my
the show
fence
this
and knock it
morning?
over.
Yeah, fun.
So when we get to October, we'll look. 'Cause
Neighbors.
We might be able to move our, if we don't need our regular.
Construction people sometimes, usually people that don't live in the neighborhood.
Put the
That
hurt
date.
on
Yeah.
them.
Well, they'll feel it if they hit the,
Yeah, so I'll
So we
go
can't
through,
move this too much.
it looks good. We want to get away from that rope and have
I'll
just
go
boulders
through.
and other stuff. I don't care, sir. I mean, we let the whole neighborhood use it. We maintain it, try to keep it nice.
When would our meeting in October?
Yeah, and I need
Did somebody complain?
to clarify the date.
No, it wasn't a
wouldn't
complaint.
complain.
It's a
just
regular
joking.
meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it.
I had
Yeah, they had
it
someone
wrong
say,
on there
"You're
the
our
first
councilman. What are
time.
you gonna do about these boulders? What boulders?
Boulders.
First is our regular.
You should say in Colorado, you mean?
Those are just legacy boulders left over from the glaciers.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you feel like the recovery's going
Yeah, I do. I mean, I can walk really without that. I'm only 12 days out.
Yes,
So pretty
okay.
good.
or? Okay.
Sorry,
did your surgery?
August 1st.
That's the finalize there.
Mark Clausen.
Awesome.
Mark Clausen, yeah, very good. It was a biomet partial
I'll go
knee.
through
I had the
it.
other one done about 6 years ago, and this one.
So
It was the guy who Dane
usually we
recommended,
have
and then
meeting
now
on
he, you know,
October 1st.
I just traveled with him.
If we
It's
don't
fine,
need
that's
it,
the
we
border.
can kick that
He
back.
took me up to Michigan, he and his wife, and my wife are
October
friends.
18th.
And so we become friends, and so this one, I just kind of put off for a year because of travel and all that, but he's very good. He did Gale Sayers and a couple race car drivers. And Mary Louise, like Dane could have sent,
Wow. Yeah.
had her done anyway. So he's very good, especially at partial knees. Elkhart,
In Elkhart.
Elkhart.
That's what Coulter wanted me to
Napping
go
it.
to for my hip. But I can't go.
Who wanted?
Yeah. Bill Coulter.
Oh, Bill Coulter wanted you to go.
Wanted me to go.
I'll double check that.
I
I'm
can't.
guessing we have something to approve on October 1st.
I need instant relief now.
Right now.
I had a
Yeah.
bicycle wreck.
Be all right.
I had emergency surgery.
That's our regular schedule.
I couldn't
Yeah.
see myself riding that car. I just too much pain.
So if we don't
Yeah.
need it, we'll just have the.
So Chris did it.
On the, if we do, then we'll have.
Yeah, but you were happy with that, right?
Hurricane gate.
So far, so good. You know, I think
We
my
have a short
stars,
window to
lucky
get everything
stars every day
finished
because I
You
never
could have done that.
complain because I can walk.
And we do have some leeway in there, so if something comes up,
Done your head
or
and all that.
if there's an
Well, I
issue,
broke-
No, yeah.
about a 2-week
broke
window,
your-
we can shift
Yeah.
things around in.
Cracked it.
But
Yeah.
Big crack.
we want to be
I mean, you could-
bond
And if I
issuing
hadn't
in or before
been
November.
living,
Because once you start getting into the
age where you get surgery
holidays,
like that, I'd been dead
it
by
goes
now.
to,
Yeah.
it gets real
Oh,
difficult
yeah,
real
think about
quick.
all this. I think
So the
about
end
my
goal
life.
was to be bonding
Head
end of
my
October,
femur was
early
just
November,
pieces. It was
so
just
we
like
can
crushed
avoid the
it.
holidays.
That was your bike,
Because a lot of
bicycle?
the people on vacation.
Dog ran out on it.
It still bothers me, but you know, I'll never complain because these guys come back from Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Mark the calendars as it's stated now. I'll check on a few.
It's such a nice story that you adopted the dog and now he's your pet.
But yeah.
I just
And then I shot
avoided.
it,
This is
And then you shot
A
her.
couple of these are already on the
used it for target practice. So.
I don't
The
know.
dog died shortly thereafter.
Did it die right after? Oh, I missed it.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. Man. If you would, please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Sure.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Give me 20.
Yeah, yeah.
Jeremy, thank you for moving this meeting. It was my request, gentlemen. So,
Oh, it was?
Yeah.
Well, actually, I probably wouldn't have been able to make it.
Anything to accommodate.
well, I couldn't have come, George couldn't have come, so.
Yeah. this-
It worked out best
Yeah.
for everybody, I think. Approval of minutes of the last meeting from July 2nd, I believe. You should have received a copy in your packet. Are there any corrections, changes, deletions, additions?
None that I noted, so I'll make a motion to approve the minutes as
We have
written.
a motion to approve as stated, minutes as stated. Do I hear a
Second.
George seconds. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Approval of claims. I'll turn it over to Mr. Jeremy for a little explanation.
Well, we do have some. The unbought claims, the 2,900 and 2,800 are for our ongoing services needed for the TIF. One was, some of it's associated with the Winona PVD taxpayer, some of it's for the TIF management in terms of our required postings with the financial entities. And then the second part of that was the disclosure statements that are required for our bonds. Kemple and Associates, have them working on a couple different projects. The first being the subdivision of the Gacky project, which will go to Plan Commission tonight. The reason for that is, and I don't know if I'll talk at length a little bit tonight, and I'll give you the same spiel. As we continue to try to redevelop that Gacky property, one of the things we were looking at going after was blight and slum clearance money, which is an Okra-funded grant. In order to use that grant money and redevelop the property, we have to subdivide it, because anything we would use the money to demo with, we could not do anything with for 4 years. So we're currently trying to redevelop some of the front buildings on the Gacky property. If we don't subdivide the land and we do demo on that land, then it has to sit there for 4 years. If we subdivide it and then demo those portions that we want to demo on the subdivided land, then we can still rehabilitate the portions that are on the different lot. It's somewhat convoluted, but that's the process that they've told us. We can still demo and redevelop at the same time. So that's the point of the Gacky subdivision.
Is that a state law? Is that, you know?
It's not a state law. It is part of the strings attached to that funding mechanism.
Oh.
And if you're aware of Okra's funding mechanism, most of Okra's money comes from CDBG money, and CDBG money has a lot of strings attached to it, and that's just one of them.
Okay. Thank
Jeremy, I have a question, just an explanatory question. When you subdivide it, what does that mean? Are you actually putting a new property
Yes.
line there? And so now you have one parcel with a parcel number, and now you have two separate parcels, and they each have their own new
Yes.
parcel number?
Yes.
And the point of that is,
The point of that was so that we could use, if we were to get grant money, we could demo those portions that aren't usable, but still rehab the portion that we want to rehab. If we
well,
don't.
that
sub-
part I understand. I just don't know why they
Good, I don't.
I honestly, I
You
don't.
don't
it
know
doesn't-
either, probably.
I don't, and when we had that conversation with them, it seems the opposite. I mean, the point of the blight demolition is so that it makes it easier to rehabilitate it.
Right.
Because part of the reason the Gacky project is hard to get someone is because you've got $200,000-300,000 sitting there in just demolition costs before you do anything. So how do you try to reduce the cost to redevelop that property? You get some grant money for the demolition. It makes it more appealing because the person coming in to redevelop it doesn't have, $200,000 to $300,000 before they even get off the ground.
Yeah.
Why they would put those restrictions on it, I don't know.
Well, that kind of makes sense to me. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Utility easements and right-of-way takes, these are for continued design work on 300 North.
When's that project scheduled to wrap up?
As far as
The road open?
the bridge work, they said a month. Having been out there, if I had to guess, I'd probably say end of September, early October is probably when it's going to be done. I think they're thinking earlier than that, but I'm going to guess end of September.
Yeah.
And that's just for the bridge. Our engineering work is ongoing to do the second phase, which we will start construction in the spring of 2019.
At the roundabout.
Yeah.
That include
Yep.
around-
Yep. Writing descriptions, legal descriptions are for some ongoing work I've been having them do in terms of annexations. Airport Industrial Park Sanitary Sewer, this is part of that contract we signed with Wessler for the engineering. Is there two of them here? So there's two bills for the Airport Industrial Park Sanitary Sewer. Troyer Group 7,200 is for the 300 North engineering. OrthoWorks, 67,000 was part of our agreement with OrthoWorks to match for SL Inks. And then,
Have we seen anything in the way of their excellence?
yes, they did give me a report. Did I not forward that on to you?
Don't think so.
I will
Would you
send
do
that.
that, please?
I will send that out to you guys.
I'd like to see what they're paying Yes. I mean, I
Actually-
know they got a plan, I just, let's like see what results we've gotten so far with that.
I will send that to you. That
Thank
was,
you.
my point was to send it to you. If it's not in your packet, then I'll get that sent out to you.
Very good, thank you.
Because they did give, and we did meet with them and kind of went over where they're at and some of the projects they're working on, so I'll try to get that out to you. Clint Davis Construction was the 20,000 that you agreed to participate in the Rotary Park COG monument, and that's all the points.
Okay, very good. Any questions, Mr. Jeremy, about the redevelopment claims for this month?
Will it be approved as presented?
We have a motion to approve as presented.
Second.
We have a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, moving right along. New business. Sanitary sewer study agreement.
Yeah, so if you look at the map, you might be able to tell, this is gonna be part of, go to the back. So we've been working with Wessler on a number of sanitary sewer study areas of how we're going to be able to treat, as the city grows in certain areas. One of the areas that we'd like to get done sooner rather than later is this airport area north of the airport, north of the annexation and the sanitary sewer system we're doing for the airport industrial park. Part of the TIF expansion that we're looking at doing will include the airport industrial park we're annexing in, and it will include all of the airport, and it will include some acreage, would be east of the airport that we're currently in the process of annexing. So that study area will mainly look at the airport and the properties north and east of the airport as to how we might be able to sewer those in the future. So that, this study area is,
Map, Jeremy, is that what you want us
Yes.
to be looking at? Okay.
yeah, if you're looking
Say
at,
north and east of the airport.
this is the study area that we're looking at.
Okay, box number 5, got it,
Yeah.
okay.
5 and 6.
Specifically,
5.
there's 40-some acres up in here that's in the process of being annexed. That we're trying to figure out, and the potential that those improvements to service the airport, which currently does not have sanitary sewer. So this is something I've talked to Nick, and Nick has talked to me about in the future, how, in the near future, how do we provide sanitary sewer to that airport? Not only to the airport, but to the hangars. All of them right now have septic systems or pumps, tanks that are pumped, which obviously is something that needs to be fixed at some point. Pumping costs are expensive, septic systems are expensive. And seeing as it's in the city, we should probably figure out how to get sanitary sewer to that area.
Is number 5, is that the Williams?
It's not, actually, that number 5 is kind of a bad location. Williams is actually up here.
Oh, yeah, okay.
It's north of the
That's
box?
good.
No, it's in the box.
North
but
side of the box.
It's north side
That's
of the
what,
box.
okay, yeah, I thought it was.
Okay. I don't have my reader on, but I
It's,
thought it looked a
it's,
little bit.
I believe, George, it's like between here and,
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's north of the Dells, directly north of the Dells. So basically, this study would put the feasibility of providing sanitary sewer to those areas, and then evaluation of routes and how we could potentially go about getting it done. It's not going to do the engineering. We'd have to come back at some point later to do the engineering. But this is going to evaluate not only the airport, that area we're currently annexing in, but those areas in between. Although they're not annexed in, and we don't anticipate annexing them in at this time, any infrastructure we're gonna spend money on, we want to be able to serve the whole, not just a portion of it. So the idea of the study is to identify how do we best serve the whole, so that any money we do put in the ground has long-term value, not just short-term value.
So that entire neighborhood out there that's within that box is not, it is all on
It is
sewer.
not- it's
Or
not
all on-
annexed.
It's all on septic.
It's not annexed. We don't anticipate annexing them and
Oh,
sewing
okay.
them. But if we're going to spend money putting infrastructure in the ground, we want to know, we want to maximize our ability to service. So at some point in time, if they were to come and say, we have problems, we need service, our infrastructure that we're putting in the ground will be able to serve them. Otherwise, if we just build a system that can only treat what we're looking to treat, then we're gonna have more costs later on to identify how to service them. This way, long-term planning, so it's kind of short-term and long-term. Short-term, we're identifying the areas that we want to service now. Long-term, we're identifying what infrastructure we need to put in the ground to service the whole.
It appears from this map that the current sewer line is on the west side of 15.
It is, yep.
Correct?
So we would be running something from 15 over theoretically with a central pump that would be able to gravity feed into and then pump back to the main on 15. It is not, we're not gonna be able to gravity feed to 15, that much we do know. So we're looking at what's the best possible solution, location for a pump, and what area can we service with that? And then how do we gravity feed into that pump that would be pumped back to 15?
So are we approving all three of these expenditures?
Yes. No, two. The 4,000 and the 15,500 add up to the total of the 19,500.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
and that's just for the engineering part.
yes. Yeah, that's just for the two sections, which would be the feasibility, so they're gonna look at it, is it feasible? Second, they're gonna evaluate the routes and the infrastructure that we would need to treat it.
I
It's
see.
not going to design it, but it's
I
going
see.
to tell you, here's your grades, here's the best couple of locations you could put, here's how deep it needs to be, here's how you're gonna gravity feed to it, here's how you're gonna feed out of it to the location. The engineering itself would actually put on a piece of paper for a bid document, which we're not getting into at
Right.
this point.
I stand correct.
So why is the Board of Public Works and Safety listed as the owner on this document?
Because they've done, most of the work that they've done is through the sewage treatment, so I think they just threw that on there. They didn't realize that, and I think they did this to the 300, or to the airport industrial park too, and I had to scratch it out. And I
So
didn't catch it.
this document need to be changed to
We can approve it, and I can get you a new sheet, or we can scratch it out and put Warsaw Redevelopment Commission, and you can sign it. I mean, it's up to you, however you want to do it.
That was one of my questions.
I wasn't sure who had the proper authority to approve those expenditures.
Both do, but because I'm specifically asking to use redevelopment money for that design work,
Then it
it
kind of falls to us.
comes to you.
Makes sense.
That makes sense?
Yeah, it does.
Especially when I saw the names on here.
Right, I did too, I thought, what?
Well, one in particular. Okay. Any further questions for Jeremy about this document?
So you're gonna change that, or no?
We are going, we'll have to
Okay.
change that, because if we're going to use redevelopment money for those expenditures, we will have to show that.
I can have him send me a new signature page if you prefer to do that, or we can scratch it out on here and sign,
Make a manual adjustment.
yeah, manual adjustment and send it to him.
Just
Do
put
you have a
that in the form
preference?
of a motion. Do you have a preference on that?
I do.
What would you prefer?
It'd be redone.
Redone? That's fine.
Okay.
I don't.
I would move we approve it as improved. As changed.
With the correction
With the
of the
correction.
redevelopment as the owner.
Yeah.
Is that sufficient? Okay.
I'll second.
You made that motion?
Yeah, I did.
I'll second that.
Why don't we have somebody that's not listed on here?
Okay,
Second.
I'll do it.
Mike?
Okay. Oh,
I did it silently. I just went like
He
this.
was already motioned.
I was
are
ahead.
you negating my second?
No, I just noticed that he held up his hand before you spoke, so he was actually first in line. First, second. It's kindergarten. So, Mr. Cardenas has made the second. Are there any more questions or discussion regarding this document, this expenditure? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carries. We will ask you to have the document changed and let me know, and whoever needs to sign that.
Probably just be you and Rick, and I'll give you guys a call
All right.
when I have it.
We'll be happy to, won't we, Rick?
Absolutely.
All right. Moving right along. Gosh, this is fun. Okay. The Economic Development Agreement is in here. You want to explain what?
Yeah, so
that-
this is a draft of the economic development agreement that Kinder and Sons is putting together for the GACI project. That's why you'll see some highlighted areas in here that will be yet to be removed.
I was going to say, that will be redacted or not.
Yeah,
or
it wouldn't be a part of,
It'd
yeah,
be totally
they're not relevant to this.
irrelevant to this, yeah. I did have one question in section 3, that says, it's like the second page or so, about the property development, 3.01. It says the developer has acquired the property. Have they actually acquired any property?
No,
Article 3, I'm sorry.
yeah, no. Should say developer is wanting to acquire the property. Partly that's why you have this, is I wanted you guys to review it.
This
We're
is
not-
just a draft.
We're
at
not,
this
it's
point.
just a draft, we're not approving anything. I kind of went through it to see if I had caught anything, and then I'm gonna give it to Valentine for him to review. I just wanted to get it in your hands early, so if there's something you've seen or noticed that seems off, those sections that don't apply to this project obviously won't be in there. The big part is that A and B, and then obviously the city would be, or the redevelopment commission would be giving them the property for the purpose of them making a commitment to expend blank amount of money to develop the property. I mean, that's kind of the nuts and bolts of it. Some of the little stuff that need, the typos and stuff that need to be fixed, that's what we'll have to work on.
But there will be a phase 1 and phase 2.
Yes,
It's described in here.
yeah.
How are they going to show us they have the money?
How would you like them to show that they have the money?
Bank commitments,
Okay.
Cashier's check.
cashier's check, yeah. No, but
No, I mean,
we've been at this for so long,
yep.
and nobody's had the money. And
Well, that's why you have the draft. If there's something you want, we can certainly ask. if they would agree in some terms, we can look at what options what kind of guarantees we would have in signing an agreement.
I think there's paragraphs in this, internal to this thing that says if they don't meet their financial obligations, the whole deal is off. But we could be putting a lot of money into development before it's.
That's right.
Jeremy, in
Mr. Mayor, would you like to
Article 4.
address?
section 4.01, it talks about public infrastructure improvements, more addressed towards the North Buffalo Street project. Is that germane to this agreement? Is
No.
this-
No, he left
Did he highlight that?
He highlighted because it needs to be taken out,
Okay,
or that
fair
section needs to be,
Modified?
modified to meet this project, and
Right.
that's what, and that 4.01 could have to do with Okra fund. I mean, it could state that the city's going to go get Okra funds for demolition of light. I mean, those are the sections that we still have to work on. I just wanted to get this in your hands to look at, so you can notice the things like Tim noticed, or Rick can say, hey, what kind of guarantees we're gonna have. Then we can start to finalize what this draft's gonna look like.
Who prepared this?
This is a copy. What he basically did was took a copy of what we use for the Buffalo Street and is modifying it. And it'd be Alan who's prepared it.
Apparently didn't make all the corrections and that needed to be done.
Jeremy, and I assume that like under 4.03, the conveyance of the property to the developer will only occur after certain benchmarks and obligations and
Yep.
investments have been made.
Yep. Yeah, those are the details we haven't
Right.
quite figured out yet.
When do you expect we will get?
Well, I wanted you to look at it, give me any input that you want, or that you're thinking about, and I'll work with him to try to finalize this over the next month and maybe bring it back in September.
So have you written down what we said already?
Yes.
Okay.
I think we'd like to get it done in September.
Yeah.
Jeremy, I want to make sure I fully understand. This isn't a draft agreement with the gentleman that has come to our meetings before, and we've had a 6-month agreement with him that expired, correct?
Yep.
Okay. So is there a time limit on this? Okay.
The only time limit would be if we were working with somebody else. You know, the whole point of that 6-month agreement was that they would give them some due diligence time, and we wouldn't just sell
Right.
it and they spend 5 months and then come back on the 6th month and we sold it to somebody else.
Right, and I understand that. So where I'm going with my question is, we had a 6-month agreement, we wouldn't do anything, we gave it 6 months, that has expired. If we sign this, are we locked out of doing anything with anybody else in
Yeah.
case some sugar daddy comes along and says, hey guys, I got some money I want to put in this thing?
We would be. And
But
that's
the-
why I
but the
think it's
clock
important.
starts with
I think
them,
it's
then.
important that we understand what this agreement's saying and
That's why I'm asking.
there will
So,
be dates in here which they would execute phase 1, dates they would execute phase 2, dates we would dispose of the property to them for the execution of phase 1.
where are these dates?
It's kind of outlined in that 3.02, A and B, and then 4.0,
Some of them are just
4.03.
blank at this point.
Yeah,
Okay, so,
4.03.
because I did read it, but I didn't see any specific date, so,
No, this is just a draft, so they're kind of laying out the framework. What I want you to do is review it, the framework. Is there something missing? Is there something we need to add? Is there something you want added?
well, shouldn't we work within a time frame instead of having an open-ended agreement? Or shouldn't we say, we'll extend this another 6 months or another,
Well, if we sign the development agreement, then it will be based on the dates that are in the agreement. That's what we would have to work out between Warsaw and Kendrons.
right?
Yeah, right now, he's just throwing in blanks. because we haven't sat down and discussed, okay, if we sign this agreement, that your clock starts and you have until X date to,
And that clock starts for how long? The clock starts and goes for how long?
well, that will kind of be dependent on what they're looking to do and what we agree to. So let's say let's say Kinder and Son says, we'll sign the agreement and we will complete phase 1 within 2 years. If that's acceptable to us, then that'll be the date, we'll set that date for sometime in 2020. Or end of 2020.
It should set the date of when it starts. They should commence construction no later than a certain date, and it should be completed within so many.
Yeah, the
a certain
difference here
date.
is that this is a specific project we're trying to put details into. It's not an open-ended agreement that they're gonna come back after they've had a chance to
Yeah.
vet some other projects and come up with one. This addresses a specific project.
Yeah, when we sign this, this will be the agreement we have with someone to redevelop Gaki. There won't be a 6-month this will be the agreement and the dates and the time, all that will be set. They will have to reach their goals, and we'll have to do what we need to do to make it happen, much like Buffalo Street.
So we'll have to decide at what date do we want to commence construction? How long do we want to give them to complete that construction? And how long we allow them before they must begin construction of phase 2?
And they're going
How
to
long
propose,
will we
they're gonna
allow that?
propose those dates to us. We're gonna determine whether or not they're acceptable.
Right.
I mean, I'm not gonna tell them how long it's gonna take them to build their building. They're gonna tell us, here's our start date, here's how long it's gonna take, and then we will decide whether or not it's acceptable. If they came in and said it's gonna take us 10 years, that's probably not acceptable. If they come in and say it's gonna take us 18 months, okay, that's probably acceptable in terms of the building and remodel they're gonna accept. So they're gonna propose dates to us, and then you will have a chance to agree to those dates that they propose.
But the other things that'll be in here is the infrastructure they're gonna request us to provide,
If any, yeah.
if any, and,
Like I said,
and
it'll probably
financial
be,
assistance.
it'll
if
probably
any.
be some language on the Okra grant that we are because the only way, they can't apply for Okra grants, only government entities can apply, or nonprofits can apply for Okra grants. So some of that language that, in that section, that 4.01 will probably be that the city will participate in applying for and trying to receive Okra grants for blight and demolition. So those things will be in here. This is just a rough draft, I didn't want to hold on to it, I wanted to get it in your hands, so if you had any comments now, so we weren't doing this 4 times. So now you have it, you can look at it, if there's something missing, something that needs to be added, we'll start to fill in the gaps. When I get a more kind of finalized draft, I'll try to get that out ahead of time and see if you have any other comments that we might need to make some changes to. He just wanted to get this, are we on the right track? Does this look like we're heading in the right direction, or are we not, and we need to go backwards and start over, but,
It's the type of agreement that, like we did with Matthews down on Buffalo Street.
this is a
Now is
carbon copy of that,
Now is the
yes.
time, with regards to performance, to make your intentions known, what you expect for disposition of that property. That's what this is all about, basically. And then the details about it. Any other expectations that the developer has of the city, and expectations that we have of this project, including timelines.
And I will work on the financial side of it, Rick, to see, what they might be willing to do in terms of how they show their financial stability and or what guarantee they might be willing to look at.
Mayor, does that include what the city would like to see done with that property, or is that totally up to the developer? Would we
This
like
is
to
the-
see
this is the
housing there,
developer's-
or?
This is the developer's proposal. It's a very specific proposal. This is what you all gave him the latitude to look for 6 months ago, or whenever you signed the agreement.
Right, but I haven't seen him come back with any.
Develop it. Well, that's what this is.
It's not gonna get
Am I
in.
missing something?
It's not gonna get into the specifics of, it's still bound by the same rules that all property in Warsaw is.
Okay,
So it's not It's not gonna be residential because it can't be residential. We've talked with them about what they wanted to do there, and it fits within the scope of what, the zoning in the area and, you know, all of that. So what they want to do there in terms of use is not outside of the box of what they're allowed to do there. But we're not dictating that it has to be, you know, a professional office, or it has to be this, or it has to be that. As long as it meets the confines of those districts, it would be permitted.
They're putting
That makes
together
sense.
a project that requires investment. Investors are certainly wanting to make sure that their investment there's a return on their investment.
They want
So
a return on investment.
It's what you all have allowed them to do, come up with a proposal that develops that property, that allows investors to participate and come up with a plan that meets the needs of the city, Redevelopment Commission, and also come up with investors to make the project happen, come up with a development agreement.
When we bring this development agreement, they can certainly be here to describe the project they're proposing to do. I think that's a valid question to ask, rather than just, we're gonna build 20,000 square feet. I think they can come and say, here's the people we're working with, here's the ideas, here's the project itself. Now, could that change? Absolutely. Keep in mind, they're building the 20,000 square feet, and have options to lease from the parties they're putting together. Those parties could back out, doesn't mean that they can't lease it to somebody else. They're more or less are going to be rehabbing the building, creating leasable space. And they have people that they're working with, you know, because they're gonna want guarantees on who's leasing that space. But that could change up until the time that it's finished. You know, they could have someone put back out while they're building it and find somebody new to lease it.
Yeah, the second paragraph of the whereas is
What
basically
page are you on,
just-
Tim?
Pardon me?
Page?
Page one.
One, the second whereas paragraph, it just very generically defines the project, phase one being 20,000 square foot, multi-use building, some combination of space for retail, eateries, art production, professional offices, and then another phase two, 20,000 square foot multi-use building. Pretty broad and non-specific. I think the next version probably will be maybe a little more specific.
Well, it's not going to be more specific in terms of, and this is much like the Buffalo Street project. We aren't dictating that Arby's locates in the Buffalo Street. What we are dictating is, here's a group of uses. Any of these uses are acceptable, just like anywhere else in any other zoning district. These are the acceptable uses within this area. That's what they're targeting. They're building a building that they're going to lease. We're not dictating to them who they're leasing it to.
I understand.
So
I get that.
what they're saying is, this is what we're targeting. We're targeting this type of use. We're targeting professional office, maybe some retail, maybe some eateries, maybe some art production, light manufacturing. That's their target. They're working with people that they think will fit that target and will enter into a lease agreement to lease that space. But there's no guarantee that those people are gonna lease the space until they ink on the dotted line. That's what I'm saying. So they're gonna come in and they're gonna give you an idea of who they're talking to and what they're doing, and it's gonna be somewhat generic, because 18 months from now, who they're currently talking to may go a different direction, and they may be talking to somebody completely different. What they're doing is rehabbing a space that will be leased for those category of uses. And it won't include someone's specific name, because they could lease it tomorrow, end their lease, and someone else could lease it the next day. They're rehabbing a 20,000 square foot building to create leasable space. That's the project. Much like Buffalo Street was, we're building a new building at X amount of square feet.
I guess that was easier for me to understand than this.
Because it was new, yeah. There's
So,
nothing there.
so is it gonna be the long building with the blown out
Yes.
windows? Is that what we're
Well-
talking about?
Yeah, the main warehouse building, steel structure, still usable. A lot of rehab work needs to go into it, but that's one of the few buildings that could still be utilized
Yeah,
with a lot of rehab.
right.
Not like it can be easily reutilized, but with certainly with some rehab, it can be reutilized.
And with North Buffalo Street, we had an artist rendering, we could see, visualize the concept. With this, I'm like,
He might have some of the, I can see where if they have some, I'm sure they have
And
some
to get
drawings
this and
because
then-
they've been marketing it to certain people, so they have to have something for them to
Depends
see.
on the use, what the final use is, and how
But
it's
eventually
divided up.
so where do we go from here? Are you gonna make changes to this and bring it back to us?
Yeah, my goal here was, here's kind of a structure, a framework, what needs to be added. Rick wants to see something from the financial side. Tim noted an error that was in here. We need to address that 4.01 and the 4.06 not really relevant, that just needs to be taken out. And 4.03 and 3.02 need to be finalized in terms of the dates. So those are the things I'm going to be working on with him. If
Is
there's
there-
anything else that's missing in here, then we need to discuss that.
Is there any out for the city if if he comes back
The
with,
out would be their failure to meet the deadlines.
and that's it? I mean, if they come back with some monstrosity, you can't say, oh, whoa, that's not what,
You could, because that's not what they're saying. What they're saying is they're going to do X, Y, and Z. If they comes back and says, I'm building a 700,000 square foot steel mill, no, our agreement's 20,000 square foot professional office. So yeah, I mean, it has to be within the confines of the description of their project.
Some combination of that.
Yeah.
What they
Is that what you were getting
spelled
at?
out.
sorta, kinda, yeah.
Like I said, very generic, but at least it's specific enough to tell us, here's the few things that they can do.
Everyone's appetite has been wet on this thing. Everybody's dying to know what the finished product's gonna be. The developer's still putting those pieces together, but he has to know the framework that he's working within. And that includes the disposition of the property, and again, what the expectation is on the time frame. Because he's the one that's gonna invest, or his company's the one that's gonna invest in building the building. So there's gotta be a framework and expectation from you all, without getting too detailed.
Okay,
That's really what this is about.
okay.
It's,
Well, this is a bit of a new one for me. I've not had to deal with something this,
no, this is exciting. This is really exciting.
yeah,
But it's also step at a time. And this is very requisite so that he can go to his investors and say, look, this is what the city expects. Are you in?
Yeah, this is what the city expects, this is what the city's putting in, they're putting in the land. Like I said, I'm guessing we're gonna have a blurb in there about the Oka grant and our, being the applicant for blight and demolition, or blight demolition funding. Those are the things we're gonna agree to, they're gonna agree to do X, Y, and Z, and there'll be timeframes.
But remember, this has been 20 years in the making. So we're very patient to make sure it's done right.
Yeah.
And that this developer is.
and you know me, I want it done right.
This
We're gonna
project
do it.
is, developer's bringing a project to the community that everyone's gonna be proud of.
I mean, I understood the North Buffalo, because I think the artist rendering just said it all.
Mostly residential project. This is different. This is taking,
This is
what are you gonna
different.
do with an old building? Everybody up here would have a different idea of what to do with that building, and this is gonna be their interpretation of what they wanna do. Not only an interpretation and a drawing, but some commitments and some funding to do it. So but they need the development, the understanding and the expectation of what Redevelopment Commission expects in order to pass that property to them. They need to do this.
Mhm.
That's really what this is about.
Mhm. Okay, thank you, that helps me.
Would it be possible for them to provide an artist rendering of what their proposal is?
I think they do have some drawings, because they've obviously been showing this to people, so they have to have something to show. So I don't know exactly what he has at this point, but certainly I can see what he does have, and we can look at that.
I think it would be helpful for us to see what he has in mind. I mean, we know what the purpose of the building, or combination of purposes of the building. It would certainly help us to visualize what, with an artist rendering, if at all possible, along with the agreement. Is that fair?
Yeah, I'm surprised he's not here today. He's been to a lot of meetings, and then this comes
Yeah.
up and he's not here
Yeah.
to answer any questions.
I did not tell him I was putting this on here.
Oh,
I just,
that goes a long way to explain why he's not here.
That, and he was here last month.
I told
He
him.
was here last Monday and we
Changed the
weren't.
date.
We changed the date.
That's right.
And you've been here last Monday. He was here.
It's your fault.
It's your fault.
I think he was here last Monday, and
Yeah.
I did talk to him.
Oh,
Draft.
see?
But the point was, we're not approving this. This is just your first look. Here's the framework, what's missing. And I'm looking for big ticket items. I mean, dates and that thing, we already know we have to fill those in. I'm looking for Rick. Rick wants to see something financial in here. Okay, I can work with them on what that is. And then I'll have to provide that back to him and say, Rick, does this meet your what you're wanting to see from them? Those are the types of things. If you notice some typos and things like that, then certainly we'll correct those too.
Right.
But
Yeah, if you could provide whatever you work out with them before the next meeting.
yes,
of
I will
course,
try to.
We could.
I'll try to keep it updated as we
Yeah.
go, so
Okay.
that you're not looking at it all at
For the
once.
first time, yeah. More than 24
I'm
hours.
guessing we'll be looking at this in September, but if we don't get to that point, then it won't be September.
Okay.
It'll be up to them to kind of drive a lot of this, because a lot of this they're going to have to make, in section 4.01, what are they looking for? Like I said, I have a pretty good idea of what he wants, but he needs to put it in
Got to put it in
writing
Yep.
so that I can critique it.
So you're just gonna take this back to him with our suggestions and he's gonna come back
Yes,
with a new and enhanced version,
yes.
better?
And Valentine's going to look at it from a legal standpoint.
All right.
All that fun stuff.
Very good.
Thank
So
you, Jeremy. Thank you,
If you
Mayor.
look at this
Yeah.
over the next week or so and you see something, email me. So your review of it doesn't necessarily stop here today. Look at it, if
All
you
right.
see something. I'd rather address it in between now and September than wait until September to address it.
Okay.
All right.
That's why you have it now.
Good question, so.
So take a look at it. And, Jeremy will provide us an update as it's available.
I got some pictures that Stellar had drawn up for that building, but that was for a different use. That wasn't
Yeah.
for a mixed use. That was, I mean, and they're interesting. I mean, I think the idea is to maintain the historical
Yeah.
preservation. of the building.
The Stellar project is what drove their interest in it. Having seen what we were looking at from a Stellar standpoint, and talking to some people within the city that had things that they wanted to do, that was kind of the driving force. We did the Stellar, we had some interest, and we didn't get the Stellar funding, but the interest was still there. So they came along, picked up the ball, grabbed the people that still had the interest, and said, okay, can we still put something together without Stellar money? That's what he's been trying to do over the last year and a half or so. And I think they're getting to a point where they have the interested parties. He's trying to put an agreement together to try to finalize what does this look like in the end.
Jeremy, we've had how many people draw things on that
Oh, my
property
goodness.
and come and see us? This is just one of, I'll bet, at least a half a dozen, pretty comprehensive looks at that, not just the building, but that whole campus. And, they all offered some pretty cool visuals, but without foundation of support.
There was no
And
economic
commitment.
sustenance
Money
in
tells.
that.
They're just pictures.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of what's been driving this has been the people that have come to us and said, hey, we have an idea. And I'll tell them, that's great, but you have no money. You have an idea, you have an idea, you have an idea. What one person can't do, maybe 4 people can do. So we've been over the years, we've been gathering these groups of interested people, putting them on the shelf until we found somebody who
And
could.
putting them together.
Yeah, and
taking
putting them together.
Components of each one.
So
It's been a
it's kind of,
process.
it's a long process, but I think there's a number of people with interest in doing something there, with ideas. And we put them in contact with Alan as they were working on what that rehabilitation would look like and how it would fit the different parties' needs, in hopes that maybe you end up with 3 or 4 end users who that individually cannot foot the bill, but as a collective whole could. And that's the challenge he has. Our challenge is making it, adding that little bit. Our challenge is, and I've talked about this a lot on a lot of the projects, is where's the gap? And how can we fill the gap? If it's financially feasible here, but you can only get to here, can we fill the gap to get it to there? That's what we're looking at. The gap may be the land. The gap may be the land and demolition money through a grant through Okra. Does that get that to that feasibility? They're doing the feasibility work. They're gonna come back to us and say, this is the gap, this is what we need. And we're gonna decide, is that a gap that the city can help with?
But we only fill that gap in the best interest of the city of Warsaw and with a reasonable amount of payback of some kind.
Yeah, our end goal is to get this back on the tax roll. I mean, it was been sitting,
Exactly.
not generating a single dime for 20 years now, 20 plus years, because even before that it was defunct. Even before we took over and cleaned up some of the property, it was
Yes, it
defunct.
was.
So it's been defunct for a long time. It's been generating no income for a long time. It's been, a sore spot in terms of the redevelopment of that area. We've had a lot of interest. We've had Freedom Oil redevelop that property. We have some interest in redeveloping property to the south of them. We've talked to Warsaw Chemical, which I think was bought last year, about doing some things. So we're trying to get that stigma removed from that area. And this is, one of those pieces of the puzzle. This is a TIF district that's generated no money for 20 years. This really is that first piece of the puzzle. If you can get that first piece of the puzzle, then it becomes that much easier to start to change the faces on the other.
And this commission, for many years, has talked about saving up enough money to demolish those buildings because of the safety concerns that those buildings. So
And we've dragged our feet because we've had a lot of interest from the public who wants to do something there.
right.
There's a lot of people in Warsaw that want to see that property rehabilitated. So I don't want to say we dragged our feet, but we've allowed them the time to put together a project that makes sense for that area and for Warsaw. And this is a piece of that puzzle, hopefully. There's no guarantees yet, only that they're working on it and trying to put the pieces together.
I think this is the furthest we've progressed with any of those proposed developments. And I'm glad to see that coming to fruition. Hopefully it will. Okay, anything else? Move on here. We have 1 or 2 other things that not on the agenda tonight. But the one thing is, we wanted to address some upcoming, on our planning calendar, the Redevelopment Commission and Authority are going to need to amend some TIF area, the North TIF area, and the lease rental revenue bonds. You want to explain what
Yes,
we're looking at here?
Remonstration period ended August 6th on the Airport Industrial Park annexation. We did have one remonstration signed and filed, but obviously that was not enough. You needed 51% to grant a court hearing and 65% to stop the annexation. So the annexation is approved. We're filing the paperwork. That annexation is already taken effect, and we'll send the paperwork to the state. The county has a recorded copy of it. They're filing their paperwork. So unofficially, the airport industrial park is annexed into the city of Warsaw. Our next step obviously is twofold. We're going to expand the TIF district to take in that area along with some additional, the airport that I talked about earlier. So the airport will be taken in. There's some land we're annexing east and northish of the airport that will be included in that TIF district. Once the TIF district is expanded, then we're talking about doing the bond issue for the engineering work that we've been ongoing for a year now for the sanitary sewer system for the airport industrial park. That airport industrial park sanitary sewer bond, we're doing a combination of bonding and cash from the Northern TIF, which was in your budgets that you approved. So we're more or less putting up $2 million in cash that we'll use for the project, and we're bonding for the remaining cash needed to complete that infrastructure project, which will start in 2019. So this calendar that I sent out to you earlier or late last week starts to framework the meetings and the dates.
Did everyone receive?
Everyone received this calendar.
Good.
And the updated one, because there was an error. I think originally it had us meeting on September 4th, which was a Tuesday, but because other people meet on Tuesdays, we try to stick to Monday nights at 4. So we had moved our date to the 10th. He did go back and adjust the calendar, and that works, that we can continue to meet on the 10th. There's some special meetings of the Redevelopment Commission in there, so note those. There's one question I'll have for him. October 1st is our regular scheduled meeting. If we don't have anything to approve on October 1st on our end, not just for this, but even other stuff that we're working on, we could potentially move that October 1st meeting to the 18th. Instead of having 2 meetings in October, we would still only have 1. It would just be moved back to the 18th to accommodate the time frame for the bond issue and the TIF expansion. So this is the calendar, this is the dates we're shooting for. At the same time, I still got to work with the engineers to make sure that we're still on pace to have the engineering and ready to bid out the project. So a lot of moving parts. We do have a little bit of wiggle room if we need it. The end goal is to have the bond issue prior to the holiday seasons, because once you get into the holiday seasons, it becomes more difficult for bond issues. People are on vacations. It's hard to get bond ratings calls, bond closings. So we're trying to avoid, I'd like to have this done early November, first, second week in November before we start to hit. And that's kind of what they're hoping to have, time frame wise. So we do have a couple of weeks. I think right now we're hitting end of October. We do a bond issue. If we have to push that into first or second week in November, I'm okay with that. But we don't want to go too much further beyond that, because then we're really pushing the envelope to get the meetings and get the bond ratings and all that.
Okay, so it's September 4th meeting, it's now the 10th.
It is the 10th. You should have, I sent you an email afterwards, on Friday, I think late Friday I sent you an email with an updated calendar. If you do not have that, let me know and I'll resend it.
I don't recall getting it.
I'll check and I'll resend.
Okay.
Jeremy, are those public meetings?
Every meeting's a public meeting.
Did you send me
Yep.
those?
So at this point, September 10th, our regular scheduled meeting will still be on track. Probably a September 24th special meeting. And you'll get notice of that, but right now, we'll plan on a special meeting on September 24th, which will be a public hearing on the lease and adopt a resolution on the lease and authorizing execution of the funds for payment of lease rentals. So that one is fairly certain that September 24th. October 1st is another regular scheduled meeting. Therein it gets a little fuzzy, because if we don't have everything in place by October 1st, we may have to have another special meeting in October to approve some more documents. So at this point, the only special meeting I think that we should plan on right now is September 24th.
The 18th will be a special meeting. What I don't know is if we'll not have the October 1st meeting and just have the October 18th meeting. And a lot of that will be dictated by if we have a bunch of bills and things that need to be paid, we're probably gonna end up having to have 2 meetings. If we don't have a lot on the docket, regular docket, that doesn't pertain to this project, then we may be able to delay the October 1st meeting to the 18th and do everything in the same meeting.
Combine those two meetings, okay? Just so you're aware of
Yeah,
what's
so the
going on. That's
24th
why-
and 18th is what you need to look at to tell me, yes, we can have a 4 o'clock meeting on the 24th and the 18th.
September 24th.
And then the regular schedule meetings, if there's anybody that can't make it, let me know that as well.